The campus was quieter than usual that afternoon, yet the tension between Min-jun and Hannah felt almost tangible. He had been keeping his distance lately, not out of indifference, but because he was trying to prove to her, and perhaps to himself, that he could change. Every interaction now carried a weight he hadn't felt before, a seriousness that replaced his usual teasing smirk. Hannah walked briskly toward the library, her books clutched tightly. She sensed Min-jun behind her, but chose not to glance back. She had noticed the difference in him lately, the absence of his constant jeers, the way he no longer lingered with his old bad boy friends, the subtle care he had started showing. Yet, she remained guarded, wary of letting herself feel anything more than irritation. Min-jun matched her pace, careful to keep a steady distance. "You're walking faster than usual," he said softly, almost a statement rather than a question. Hannah stopped abruptly, turning to face him with a glare that had become her default reaction. "Maybe I just don't want to waste time talking to you," she said curtly. Her voice carried that familiar sharpness, the one that had always kept him on his toes. He nodded slowly, understanding her warning, but there was a faint hope in his eyes. "Fair enough. I'm not here to bother you. I just want you to know I'm serious about changing." Hannah's eyebrows rose. She crossed her arms, her stance defensive. "Changing? For what? You? I don't believe a word you say. You've been saying things like that for months, and you've always slipped back into your old ways." Min-jun's expression hardened, but it wasn't the arrogance or defiance she was used to. This was sincerity. "I know, and I'm asking you to watch me now. I'm done with the fights, the trouble, the bad friends. I'm done with all of it. I can't stop caring about you, Hannah. I never wanted to, but I do." Hannah's chest tightened. She felt the familiar surge of irritation, but underneath, there was a flutter she refused to name. "Caring doesn't mean anything," she said, her voice almost trembling despite the anger she tried to maintain. "You've hurt people, you've made life difficult for others, and you've wasted your time acting like a show-off. You need to prove more than words. Until then, nothing." Min-jun's eyes softened. He stepped a little closer, careful not to invade her space, but close enough to make his presence undeniable. "I'm proving it, Hannah. Every day, every choice I make, every friend I leave behind, every time I stay away from trouble, it's all for this. For you. I don't want you to hate me anymore." Hannah looked away, pressing her lips together. The anger was still there, but it was tangled with a confusing mix of curiosity and awareness. She could see it. She really could. That he was different. Actions speak louder than words. "And even if I see changes, it doesn't mean anything will happen between us. You've taken too long to realize this." He nodded again, his gaze unwavering. "I understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness, or for love right now. I just want you to see me as I am now. Not the Min-jun who annoyed you every day, but the one trying to become someone better." Hannah's fingers tightened around her books. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to reject him completely, but his words, his tone, the quiet determination in his eyes, it all made her pause. She said nothing, simply walked ahead, leaving him at the library entrance. Over the next few days, Hannah noticed subtle changes everywhere. Min-jun was no longer hanging out with his old friends who caused trouble. He kept to himself during lunch breaks, refraining from his usual swagger. If someone tried to bother her in the hallway, he would quietly step in, not with threats or arrogance, but with calm authority that didn't draw attention. She found herself observing him without wanting to. The way he helped a younger student carry books, the way he subtly moved obstacles out of her path, the way he never teased her anymore. These little things began to chip away at her wall of hatred. She still hated him. She still reminded herself not to care, but the nagging awareness that he was changing made her heart uncertain. One afternoon, they ended up walking to class together because of a shared lecture schedule. Hannah's steps were deliberate, but she noticed that he stayed beside her, silently respecting her space. "You don't have to prove it to me verbally every time," she muttered, almost under her breath, not looking at him. "I know," he said softly, "but I can't help it. I want you to know that I'm serious, that I'm done being the guy who made your life difficult." Hannah finally glanced at him, and for a moment, the anger in her eyes wavered. She looked away quickly, pretending to focus on her notes. The tension in her chest was strange, part irritation, part something else she refused to name. Days turned into weeks, and Min-jun's consistency became undeniable. He didn't intrude, didn't tease, didn't try to force her attention. Yet, he was always present in the right ways. Leaving her assignments she forgot on the library table, quietly carrying a chair if someone tried to take her spot, offering a small smile when she caught him glancing at her from across the courtyard. Hannah's hatred began to soften, not into affection yet, but into cautious acknowledgement. She still kept her distance, still spoke with sharpness when he approached, still reminded herself of the years of teasing and bad behavior. But she couldn't deny that she noticed, and that noticing stirred an unfamiliar awareness in her heart. One rainy afternoon, as Hannah tried to juggle her umbrella and books, Min-jun appeared beside her. He held out his hand, ready to take her books. "Let me," he said simply. "I can manage," she said sharply, though her hands trembled slightly. She didn't want him to see the nervousness that bubbled beneath her irritation. "Sure," he said calmly, placing the books back in her arms, but keeping the umbrella above both their heads. The silence was awkward, charged, yet comfortable. No teasing, no comments, just presence, solid and dependable. When they reached the lecture hall, Hannah stepped inside first, her eyes avoiding his. He held the door for her, the small gesture catching her off guard. She muttered a quick, "Thanks," her voice betraying her discomfort. Min-jun nodded, a faint smile curving his lips, and let her go ahead. He didn't push for more, didn't comment, didn't tease. His actions spoke for him, quietly and consistently. In those weeks, Hannah started to reflect. She remembered all the times he had been infuriating, all the times she had wished he'd leave her alone, and yet, she began to admit to herself that he had changed. Slowly, subtly, but undeniably. Her thoughts were conflicted. She still hated him for what he used to be, for the chaos he brought, for the countless moments she had to endure his antics. Yet, she couldn't ignore the way he had transformed, the quiet respect he showed her, the careful distance he maintained while still being present. Every time she saw him helping someone else without show, or quietly protecting her from minor annoyances, her chest tightened in an unfamiliar way. She didn't name it, refused to explore it, but the acknowledgement lingered. Min-jun, on the other hand, felt a strange satisfaction. Each day he maintained his patience, avoided old habits, and subtly demonstrated care. He felt closer to the possibility of being someone worthy of her trust. He didn't rush, didn't push, didn't force anything. He only hoped that, over time, Hannah would see him not as the bad boy who tormented her, but as the man who had quietly loved her all along. And so their days passed in this delicate balance, Hannah's hatred softening inch by inch, Min-jun's devotion growing steadily, and the slow, quiet evolution of feelings laying the groundwork for what could one day become something far more profound than teasing or anger. The rhythm of their interactions had shifted. Min-jun was no longer a storm in her life, but a constant, careful presence. Hannah's anger remained, but it was now tempered with cautious awareness. And both of them, in their own ways, were learning patience, restraint, and the quiet power of consistent care. By the end of the month, Hannah noticed herself reflecting on him, not with anger, not with longing, but with something in between, a cautious recognition of change. She didn't trust it, she didn't encourage it, and she certainly didn't act on it. Yet, deep inside, a small seed of acknowledgement had been planted, fragile and unspoken, but real. And that's where this chapter closes, a story of slow transformation, patient devotion, and the first hints of an evolving bond, with Hannah still wary and Min-jun quietly persistent.